Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of HBCU Today. I'm your host, Jay Lockhart.
And I'm Lindsay Walker.
And I'm Ben Priest.
And I'm Taryn Youngs Carruthers.
And as you all can see, we have a very special guest in the studio today. We have Mr. Kevin Powell.
Hey.
All
How
right.
are you today?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome.
This is my last trip this academic year to Prairie View, so I'm sad too, but I'm just happy to be with y'all. Thank y'all.
Yes.
Yes.
We're definitely glad that you chose to be here with us for your last stop.
Absolutely. I mean, this is my world, media communication. So I requested, I said, can I come back to y'all? Can I come back to this group of students? So thank you for having me.
Yes, we appreciate that. So before we get into the conversation, let's start off with a little mental health check. So rate how you feel from 1 to 10. How's your mental health?
I feel like a 13 right now.
13?
Yeah,
That's
I'm 13
great.
because I'm with y'all. First and foremost, I'm back at Prairie View. I'm with my incredible wife, who's also a media person. You know what I mean? And it's just, in spite of all the craziness going on in the world, this is what gives me hope when I'm with young people. So thank y'all. It's a 13
Yes,
for real.
thank you for being here with us.
So, when you said you'd like to come back here at Prairie View, what makes Prairie View out of all the HBCUs, like what makes here so special to these students?
Oh man, the history I love. I mean, every HBCU has that. And I've been to many. I was just at Winston-Salem State last week. I was at Morehouse and Spelman's campus the week before that.
Mhm.
So all of it, because I didn't know that black colleges existed when I was growing up. I'm from the North,
Really?
and my mother didn't go to college, even though she's from the South. I'm a first-generation college student. I just knew I had to go to college. My mother said, go to college, or you can go to the military, or you get a good job. You got to do something because when you get 18, you got to get a Baptist piece. You know what I'm saying? But, once I realized that HBCUs existed and started visiting it, I was like, man, all this history. And honestly, I felt like at Rutgers, and I loved the school I went to in New Jersey, where I was born and raised, but I had to be a full-time student, and I felt like I was fighting racism every single day, as opposed to, can I just be sometimes? Can I just be Ben? Can I just be T? Can I just be Jay? Can I just be, can I be who I am, as opposed to having to be like this person who has to battle racism and be a full-time student as a young person. Yeah.
I'm a first generation college student as well. What about y'all?
Both of my parents went to college. My mom finished. My dad finished as well, but both of my parents went to college. I had good help about trying to navigate with college applications and all that things of that sort.
Where did your parents go to school?
My mom she graduated from U of H, but I know she went to Hampton for a little bit. That's an HBCU. She went over there. She was trying to get me to go over there, telling me how nice it was. But yeah, those are the schools she went to. My dad went to Dillard. He played ball over there.
New Orleans.
Yep.
It is. Okay.
What about you, Ben?
Personally, I always wanted to go to HBCU because my mom graduated from Grambling.
Yes.
So, but growing up, my mom specifically wanted me to go to Grambling until I visited. I was like, no. But
what made you say no?
I visited PV before Grambling, so it's just a little different, not to down them or anything. Mm-hmm. But I know I always wanted to go to HBCU. I always looked forward to those moments that you only get there, homecoming and the games and just sororities and just the whole camaraderie of HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to today's culture.
I agree.
Definitely. What about you, Lindsay?
I am the first gen. Both of my parents went to college. They went to University of Conway, Arkansas.
Okay.
So but my choice to choose at HBCU wasn't the first. At first, I talked to my uncle. He actually goes to UAPB, or he went to UAPB.
Okay.
And he was just like, just give it a try, because you'll have that black experience. You're around your people and just getting that cultural experience and just learning who I am.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, I don't know about you guys, but when I first was going to college or thought about it, I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. It was just drunk me in a ice bucket. I didn't know what to expect. I was going to be shocked. But Prairie View, not even just Prairie View, HBCUs, it was a good transition for me, especially when I came in during COVID. We already know that was.
Yes.
And it was Zoom, and the teachers and advisors and counselors were very helpful. I always tell people all the time when they come visit, I'm not saying it because I go here, but Prairie View, this is as good as it gets, because these teachers, we have some professors out here in the audience that really care for us and want to see us succeed.
Right.
And as young colored people, I hate to say it, but we don't really get that too much often.
Yeah. And when I was in college, going to a predominantly white institution, I felt like I was just a student ID number. And after the first year orientation, freshman orientation, as they call it, I really feel like I was kind of on my own. And that's why we have at those schools, you know, a Black student union, a Black student organization. We have a Black cultural center. You know, you kind of got to fight. We do have fraternities and sororities, but it's like you got to kind of find. But even there, like what we're used to here, how we party, they would write articles dissing how we partied,
Right.
how we pledged our fraternities and sororities, you know, all kinds of stuff. And even like, you know, we ended up sitting in the cafeteria. I'm sure y'all know the stories, heard stories about Black students at these majority white schools. We end up sitting in our part of the cafeteria because you just want to feel like you're not an alien up in that piece. Whereas when I go to the cafeteria here at PV, I'm like, man, this is just beautiful.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think the thing, I feel like what you're always saying is that you just want to feel safe.
Yes.
We're so comfortable. And y'all know, each and every one of you, and I've said this all year that I've been here as a writing, the Toni Morrison writer in residence at PV, all of y'all are geniuses. I didn't feel like that when I was at Rutgers University. I felt like, you know, people were just dissing me, like, oh, you must be here because of affirmative action. You're not really supposed to be here. No one wants to feel like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, wow.
So, well, this question for everyone, but Mr. Powell, if you had to have if you can go back in time and you go to HBCU, what would be your top 3?
Oh, no.
What's
Put
your
him on
top
spot.
3?
I better say PV first,
Yeah.
and
You know?
second, and third.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say. I mean, anywhere would have been dope. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, I'll tell you, when I was at Morehouse and Spelman, I was like, wow, man, I can imagine going here because I know so many people who went to Morehouse and Spelman. Same thing, Hampton, Howard, you know. When I got the job here at PV, people came out of woodworks like, yo, I went to PV. My uncle went to PV. My father went to PV. My mama went to PV. I was like, man, this is crazy because there's a legacy here. So honestly, I'd have been happy anywhere. But to Ben's point about, you know, Grambling versus PV, you know, you do have to go where you feel comfortable, where you feel like this is the space for me. Yeah.
Even, I mean, I know you didn't ask me, but
It's all right.
I know, like, I'm an out-of-state student. I know you can relate,
well.
Jay, and we're both from Illinois.
Oh,
So,
Illinois too.
Yes.
Okay.
so right away coming to PV, like, it was a culture shock because, you know, people in Illinois, they're different. They're not as open. It's not as much conversation unless you know the person. And getting to PV, it's just like, it was so much.
A southern comfortability.
Yeah, like, I made so many friends my first day, like, getting off the plane. So I think that definitely plays a big part overall in, like, HBCUs and why people choose PV, because it's kind of like a big family. Like, you'll find your way in no matter how many people.
That's what's up. I love that.
So,
Wow.
And like what to kind of piggyback, there's like a stereotype from the outside looking in. Like we're either the, I hate to say it, but the thugs or whatever, drug dealers, or we're the smart one. But it's so many different. We're people too, and it's like we're not just categorized to this one stereotype that they show on TV or
That's
the news.
Right. That's right.
We're people, and it's like what you were saying. Like when you come here, you're gonna find your people because like we come in all different shapes and sizes and different personalities, backgrounds. Like how you said up north, like down south, everyone is friendly. Like my family, I got family in Louisiana. We are friendly. We're the type of people who have a cookout and we don't know you. We're not gonna tell you to leave. You know, like you want to play. You know, it's that type of. But yeah, like that's how it is in the South.
Which I love. Wow.
So I know we're talking about HBCU culture and just all around Blackness. So sticking with the culture, we all know hip hop turns 50 years this year. So Mr. Powell, I do want to ask you, being that you've been around for a little bit longer than us, what's the difference that you've seen in the hip hop scene? Like, how has that narrative kind of shifted over the years?
Well, you know what's crazy? Do y'all mind saying your ages? I ain't gonna say mine. Can you say your age?
I'm 21 years old.
I'm 22.
I'm 21.
I'm 22.
What's deep to me is, well, I'm in my 50s, and I have been a part of hip hop since I was a preteen, literally, before it was called hip hop. And so when I think about it, the first thing that blows my mind is that we literally have people your age range. My wife and I's niece is 10 years old. She knows hip hop songs. You know what I'm saying? You got folks who are in their 30s and 40s. You got folks in their 50s and 60s. So you actually have multiple generations of people who are celebrating hip hop at 50. That blows my mind because I remember they said the stuff you even hear about it now. They said it back in the early 80s, you know, through the early 90s, like it's trash, it's garbage, it's not gonna last. You know, what is this? It's noise, blah, 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 and it's still here. And it's like, you know, this is I got 16 books. And I can actually say that hip hop made it possible for me not only to save my life as a black male, when I was a young black male in a lot of ways. It gave me opportunities, possibilities. But, Quincy Jones started Vibe magazine where I met Tupac Shakur during that time and did cover stories on him. Those books are a result of that opportunity that hip hop provided for me. You know what I mean? Because it's not like a lot of stuff is being thrown at me as a black writer. Again, the beautiful thing about being at HBCU, y'all are protected. But when you go out to that larger world, as y'all know, the racism or the sexism or the homophobia, the transphobia, all it is the ableism that you got to deal with, and you also got the skin color you got to deal with. Man, it's tough. And so hip hop's been a protector for me, but I just, it's amazing. Last week I was at Winston-Salem. I'll say this real quick. It's Winston-Salem State University. I'm an alpha, right? And my fraternity was crossing a new initiates into the fraternity. It's about 9 to 10 of them. And, it was all hip hop. They had a DJ out there. They had cats on a microphone. You know what I mean? I was watching the dances that y'all do. I was like, this is lit. You know what I'm saying? This is beautiful. And only we would understand this because we created this culture. You know what I'm saying? And so even if some heads will say who are older, like they'll diss hip hop. I don't believe in generational dissing. I just think we have different ways of expressing ourselves depending on the times in which we're born. Y'all are born like right at the cusp of the 21st century. So you see the world differently, you know what I mean? And I respect that. And like I said, you can teach me things, I can teach you things. But one thing I'm clear about, we all like to dance, we all like to party, we all love fashion, we got our hairstyles, we got our piercings, we got our tattoos.
And that's what I was just about to say about fashion. Like recently I see a trend to where it's like, back then where don't want to say ages ago, but when you were coming up, people like to wear like, big old T-shirts and whatnot, and then it went to being skinny, and then it went right, and it just keeps fluctuating, going back and forth. And it's history keeps repeating itself, and it's like, is there any trends that you will hop on that these young cats be doing?
Well, if I had hair again, because what's crazy, like I see heads now here, like you, we would have our hair and we didn't comb it in the 90s, and it's come back. Which is deep to me. Because if you look at pictures of me in the 90s, my mother, my ears were pierced and my hair was long and uncombed. My mom was like, "Are you on drugs?" I was like, "No, this is just our style, man." And when I saw it coming back with y'all, certain kinds of hairstyles, I was like, "This is deep," I'm going to keep it real, too, with y'all. We started sagging pants like 90, 91. You'd have told me 30 years later, people still be sagging their pants. Like, nah, you ain't doing that, are you?
No, not me. Not me.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, certain things I actually wish would go away because I'm tired of seeing all the draws. Like, we don't need to see all the
exactly.
Right? Not all the underwear.
Cute.
Keep it what?
Keep it cute.
Keep it cute.
It's funny. My mama used to say, let a dog chase them. They might pull up their
No,
for real.
They might chase them.
Wow. I'm sorry.
No,
please.
sorry.
No, please. No, please. I'm following y'all.
I was just going to say, we got a lot of culture to talk about. We got a lot more conversations. We can see it's definitely a lot we can talk about, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, what I am happy about is like, when you talk about who are the biggest rappers now, like if you'd have told me a few years ago it would be Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, folks like that, because women have had a hard time fitting into this culture. But we need to understand women have been there from the very beginning. In fact, the reason why we're celebrating hip hop at 50 this year, August 11th, 1973, it was a woman named Cindy Campbell in the Bronx, New York, who was doing a back to school party that she produced. She happened to ask her brother, Kool Herc, who's considered one of the founding fathers of hip hop, to DJ that party. And so black women have been there from the very beginning. Rappers Delight, Sugar Hill Gang, that was a black woman-owned record label that put that song out. So I need to say that, how important that is.
Personally, like growing up, I really wasn't a big hip hop fan. Like I grew up in a Christian household, so we couldn't listen to secular music a lot of times. And if I did, it would be like, Disney Channel or pop music, just for my environment. But
so you got a lot of Miley Cyrus and things.
Yeah, like I was into the Cheetah Girls and the kids.
I know who my friend created the Cheetah Girls.
Wow. She's a legend. She's a legend.
Yeah.
That was like growing up. Like I used to love it. Wow. But just a little kiddie. But when I finally got introduced to hip hop, I would say like Nicki Minaj was like a big person that I would be like so intrigued by. And as a young gay kid, I wouldn't really be interested in like the masculine guys or like 50 Cent or like, Jay-Z, because it's like I can't relate to them. But I'm not a girl, but I hear Nicki talking about, being cute and, things that I'm interested in. So it definitely like females in hip hop definitely like woke me up in a sense of like, it could be for me too, even if it's not a girl rapping. It could be a guy rapping, but we can relate to some type of things.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Well, we're going to talk more about relatability and more about the culture overall right after this commercial break. Make sure that y'all keep it live with HBCU Today with our special guest, Kevin Powell.
Are we live recording?
Welcome back to HBCU Today. As you all know, we still have our very special guest, Mr. Kevin Powell, in the building.
Hey.
Before the commercial break, we were talking a little bit about HBCU culture and Black culture as a whole. So keeping it still with HBCUs, and we start talking about women in hip hop. There's a lot of current artists, a lot of hip hop artists as well, who came from HBCU. So what are y'all thoughts on that? We got Meg Thee Stallion,
Kurt Cobain,
2 Chainz.
Yeah.
Well, I'll speak on 2 Chainz because I want to keep it PG, but I love his music. And in class, like we were talking about, I'm taking a hip hop comm class, and we were talking about like the stripper era, and he played a big part in that. So shout out to 2 Chainz, and shout out to Meg Thee Stallion too, because she went to PV. Like she lived in phase 1 and 2.
That's right.
I used to live in phase 1 and 2. Like I feel very connected to her. It makes us kind of feel like no matter if you go to HBC or not, you can still, like, you have the power to become something like bigger than what you could ever imagine.
I want to shout out DJ Premier, who's one of the pioneer producers of hip hop, who always talked about Prairie View. Long before I ever came here, I always heard DJ Premier because he's from Prairie View and went to the school, and that's an important figure when we talk about hip hop at 50. Got to shout out DJ Drama, who I've known since he was like 12, 13 years old. He went to Clark Atlanta University, just put out a new album, you know what I'm saying, and won a Grammy just this past year. And so there's a lot of influence of it. And then, I mean, if you look at people behind the scenes, I mean, Diddy went to HU. I mean, there's so many heads who are figures in hip hop culture, hip hop history that went to HBCUs. But again, I think that HBCUs give y'all a kind of self-esteem boost that we often don't get when we go to PWIs, because we see what's possible right in front of us, right with our professors. Y'all got folks who are filmmakers, who worked in media, all these different things. That makes a difference. When I was a political science major in college, I didn't have a single Black professor in my major. That's that. So imagine how I felt about what was possible for my life.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
A lot.
I had to figure it out.
That's one thing I can say with HBCUs. It gives artists the opportunity to network themselves and brand themselves and establish their identity.
That's right.
I think that plays a huge role in like Megan Thee Stallion, 2 Chainz, Diddy's accomplishments.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Even if like you don't, I'm not encouraging anyone to drop out. Even if you don't like finish here, like you gain something from, like you gain something like Megan Thee Stallion. She's an artist. Like she didn't need a college degree or whatever.
Well, she graduated from TSU.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like even if she didn't graduate, she probably still would have. But it still gave her that experience, that knowledge, that stuff money can't. That someone really can't teach you. You have to like really go through something to know something. If you know what I'm trying to say.
I think HBCUs are a battery in the back of Black people that we need. I'm gonna say it like that.
Yeah,
seriously.
I agree.
Yeah,
because I don't want to bring it back to coming from Illinois, but I will say, like, I really based a lot of my personality, or not personality, but I changed so much from when I moved, because I feel like being at HBCU, I finally had an opportunity to be myself without caring about judgment. So it was very interesting, because I know, like, growing up, I was in college, but I went to a mainly like white school, so I would always feel judged right off that I have to make sure I make them laugh, or I have to make sure I'm entertaining because I'm the gay kid. So I think coming here, and luckily there is a big LGBTQ plus community here. I was able to see that like everyone is different no matter what they identify as. So you should just live your life like just unapologetically, and you can do that here, like without caring.
And that's what makes us all so special. We're all different. No one's the same.
That's
we have something different to bring to the table.
Agreed.
So when it comes to living your life unapologetically, change it up a little bit. I don't know if y'all have been hearing about the Hulu special that's about to come out about Freaknik. I know they was living real. So what do y'all feel about that? Do y'all feel like that's gonna be like kind of like a exploitation of HBC? Because y'all know Freaknik, it started in the Clark Atlanta community. It started there. That was their. It happened during during their spring break.
Yeah.
So do y'all feel like them having this this Hulu special on Freaknik? Do y'all feel like that's gonna be like a negative light on HBCUs? Like, how do y'all feel like the world is gonna perceive that?
To be quite honest, I really do feel like it might have negative connotation, especially given we just had what was that in the courthouse talking about they were trying to get rid of PV parties. Like this, it's already starting. The documentary ain't even come out yet. This is already starting. So it's. I think it's gonna. If it's happening already in the courthouse, come out on Hulu already.
I mean, as someone who participated in Freaknik back in the 90s.
Mr. Powell, you got some. Tell us some.
I want to know, what was y'all drinking?
What was the atmosphere like? Tell us what Freaknik. You was at Freaknik 94?
I don't remember what his years.
Yeah, I was starting doing some math in a second.
Let me just say, in these times, I'm a vegan and a non-drinker.
Okay.
But back then, I was younger, and it was on and popping.
Yeah.
It was wild. It was wild, and anything that you thought could happen sexually, party-wise, it was going on. And, it was fun, and some of it was mad ignorant. I know we're going to get to that part of it, you know what I'm saying? But it was young Black people coming together in a space that was for us. And I think it's important for us to say this, white youth do it all the time, and they don't get condemned for having spring break celebrations.
Yes.
I mean, literally tear up whole towns, you know what I mean? And so, I'm not saying that, I just think that there's a double standard when it comes to Black people with everything. We end up becoming the poster children for whatever bad behavior the rest of society is allowed to do, i.e., white America. And so, but I do think we have to talk about some of the stuff that was going on. I mean, there was definitely homophobia that we saw, people attacking folks. There's definitely attacks on women, that happened. There was definitely sexual assault because unfortunately, a lot of us straight dudes, straight boys don't know how to act, you know what I mean? And so I think we should look at this documentary. First of all, does anyone know if Black people actually made the documentary? Or are they the creators of the documentary?
That I don't know.
So that's important.
They probably didn't.
That's very important.
They probably got the footage from Black people.
Yeah.
Because I know they're going to be using actual footage.
Yeah.
So they had to get that from
somewhere. And my wife and I are working on a documentary together right now, a film right now. One thing that's important to us is like we think about our people in a different way. Like how are we going? Y'all know, this is what y'all do, what y'all going to be going out in the world doing. Oh, yeah. And so I think one, it's important to find out who's the director, who's the producer, who's helping to write. We know it's a documentary, so you're taking the content and writing it, quote unquote. I think that's important. And if it's not us, then I think we should be criticizing some things like, hey, what lens did you choose to see this from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just ran into this with a white sister who meant well, who's working on a book about reality TV. And they have a chapter on my season of MTV's The Real World. I was on the first season way back in the day. And guess what, y'all? It's 2023, 30 years later, but she's still writing about me as if it's 1992 because her lens is racist. And I told her, I'm not participating in this because your lens is racist. Does that make sense? Which is why we are in the media in the first place. And so I definitely think like we have to have conversations about sexual assault. I mean, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month in this country. You know what I mean? Megan Thee Stallion, Tory Lanez just got the sentencing pushed back yet again. Come on, y'all. She didn't shoot herself in the feet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? She didn't shoot her. I mean, and so we do have to have real conversations about why is it acceptable to have, why is violence against women and girls acceptable? Why is violent homophobia and transphobia acceptable? And it can't just be other communities. Black people do need to have these conversations.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, someone like Ben who said, this is who I am, openly needs to know that he, what's your pronouns? He is safe out there in the world. You know what I mean? And so I think if anything, we watch Freaknik, like, yo, that looks like a lot of fun. But you know what? That over there, we need to have a conversation about that because we can have fun without
Yeah.
hurting each other.
Yes.
But I think I just want to like piggyback off the documentary. I think it's all like about keeping it real at the end of the day. Like Freaknik did have its moments of, you know, not it being an absolute perfect thing, but I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that have amazing memories from it.
Yeah,
so
I do.
It can be like
without the liquor and stuff. You do
exactly.
Hey, Professor, I see you.
So it can be a balance, you know, keeping it real
Yeah.
and also shedding light on the culture.
That's right.
And how important it is, because those people that were in Freaknik, like, you know, they're the older generation people today, and I'm sure, like you've become something. You're not the only one that's been involved in something at Freaknik that has made more of themselves.
And it's an important thing to say. One reason why so many young people back then started coming to Atlanta for Freaknik is because, you know, a lot of times we didn't feel comfortable going to other places. So Atlanta's like Houston in a lot of ways. It's like our Wakanda. You feel what I'm saying? and you know, and my wife's point is that we should have more Wakandas, so we have more places. But I think, you know, and I've been to certain places when I was a young person, even as an older person, like I don't feel welcome up in this piece. I don't feel welcome in this hotel. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that has to be taken into consideration too. Well, why did all these young people go to this one place? Because we feel welcome here, you know?
So do y'all feel like in today's world, being that it is a little different than how it was in the 90s, do y'all feel like Freaknik is something that should happen? I don't know if it would ever happen again, but do y'all feel like in present day 2023, do y'all feel like Freaknik or something similar to Freaknik? Because I know they used to have like the MTV Spring Fest, things like that. Do y'all feel like that is a culture that should come back, or do y'all feel like it should kind of stay in the past because today's world looks so different?
I'm going to bring up a point that's not really thought about too often, but I think about it sadly every day as a black man in this society. But like when a crowd of black people get like that together, I hate to say it, but it's like nowadays you can't go to the grocery store without worrying about someone shooting you or anything like that. So it's like it's like, yeah, we can do it, but it's like it's different from the 90s. Like in the 90s, I don't know, I don't recall any racial shootings like that. That was so, you know, in your face
mass
and so
shootings
public.
over and over again like it is now. Can I say something real quick since we're talking about HBCUs? When I was at Winston-Salem State last week, they told me, I didn't know this, it just got out in the news, y'all may have heard about it, that there was a white cat who had a whole bunch of guns that was about to go to another HBCU, North Carolina A&T, and shoot that joint up, but he got caught.
Oh, wow.
And think about it, Aggie Week was about to happen in North Carolina A&T. I mean, so your point, Torrin, is really powerful. It's, you know, you think about that, you know, even when I was at Winston-Salem for the probate for the Alphas last week, it was like 500-600 students out on the yard. It was beautiful, blackness everywhere. But I'm like, you know what? I hope someone's watching around, because I'm looking around like, you know, this is like a, you know, and it's sad to think about that. But think about it, y'all. Right now, as we're having this conversation, it's only been 100 days in this year. We've had 147 mass shootings in America. Wow. It wasn't like that when I was coming up as a young person. Am I right? In the 90s, it wasn't like that. It started probably with Columbine in the late 90s. And then since then, it's been like nonstop. And so
I remember Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook.
Was really big.
Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, what just happened? I mean, think about the two young brothers who just got expelled, you know, for protesting the violence that happened in Nashville at the school, you know, and one of them is back, and hopefully the other one will be back in the state legislature. But it's like, you know, this issue, I guess, can I be a journalist for a second? Ask y'all, like, what is on your minds as young people, given what the world y'all been born into? Like, what is one or two things that you think about a lot? Like, man, is this ever going to change? Is this ever going to get better?
I mean,
go ahead.
I think something that I've always wanted to see is just like the removal of oppression for like black people. I feel like that's something that I've always wanted to see, because growing up, I feel like I could see my parents working so hard to strive for better, and it's like they're stuck, but it's like it's systematic. It's nothing that they could even do about it unless you know, a miracle happens, or you know, something like that. But I want that. I just want black people to be able to express themselves and come up, no matter what, you know, industry you're in.
Right.
If you have the talent, if you put the hard work in, politics about it. You know.
Wow. I agree.
I think that's a big thing for me.
That's well said, man. Wow.
I agree. I definitely want the whole narrative of graduating college. When you graduate from a HBCU, it doesn't hold the same significance as graduating from a PWI. I want that narrative to change, because it's like I don't get it. Like we have the same equal education. So why is me having an HBCU on my degree any less significant than someone else having another one. You know, having a PWI on there. So that's something that I definitely want to change because I graduated in May, and I don't know about y'all, but I don't feel. Thank you. I don't feel secure going. I don't know. I don't feel too secure going into the real world because I've been in my black bubble for the last 4 years. You know, I've been around so many like-minded individuals, and we all want to see each other succeed. So now we're going into a world that everyone else may not want to see us succeed as black people. So I don't really know how to feel about that.
Can I respond to each of y'all after each of you speak? Because y'all saying powerful stuff. Well said. Lindsay, please.
I mainly agree with Jade and Ben. It just feels like the system is designed to fill us. I truly hate that because it's like what Jade said with trying to find a job after college.
Right.
I had a friend who her resume is exquisite. She had a great presentation throughout her interview process and still did not get this job.
Wow.
So it's like, you know,
I understand.
How can you explain why we can't get the positions that predominantly white people would get? What makes them more qualified?
Right. Wow. Thank you, Lindsay. Wow.
And I agree with everything all of you said. I just kind of want to touch on the aspect of our life, like the value of our life is so little to them because I remember being in times. I'm getting into detail, but I remember being in a time where I felt like I was going to lose my life. And when I realized, like, man, it can happen just that quick at any given moment. Like, why do I have to live like this? Why me? This isn't fair. And it's like, that's how we have to live. But I don't, to be quite honest, I don't know the resolution to that. I just live with it day by day, trying to, you know, survive, which is what we're all doing, surviving.
Exactly.
Well, you know, wow.
And striving.
And striving, yes. Y'all are brilliant. Y'all are brilliant. Folks out there, students as well. Everyone's brilliant here. And I wish someone would have said to me when I was 20, 21, 22, like y'all are, even if y'all 18, 19, watching this, you know, younger or even older students, like, you are a genius. You are a genius. You are a genius. You are a genius, period. Because I think we got to start with affirmations, you know. And I wish when I was in college, someone would have said to me, you know, hey, Kev, this path is not going to be easy, but you already know how to survive because it's in your DNA, your people, whether they are from the South, from Puerto Rico, from Brazil. It's in the DNA of your people all over the world to survive this stuff. Now the question begins, how do you win? You know, fear, as you talked about, Jade, is natural. You know, there's still things I'm like, dang, you know, but I try not to get stuck there in fear too long because I think fear can easily become a prison where it becomes permanent. You know what I mean? But I do realize that you have to carve your own path. If I could just share my own experiences, my favorite writer ever is Langston Hughes. Like, I love Langston Hughes, you know, and I just love books, period. And I love writers, period. But what I did, I studied his life because I think you got to study people who came before you and I said, okay, Langston Hughes started getting checks when he was 20 years old, 19, 20 years old as a writer. And he did it until he died in his 60s. I got my first check when I was still in college as a journalist when I was 20 years old. I was in central New Jersey. I would get on a bus and commute to New York because I was that determined to be in the media, to be a journalist. And I didn't know how to do it. I remember one time I went to a press conference at New York City Hall, and I sat in the New York Times chair. I didn't even know what chair I was supposed to be sitting in. I just said, was the chair open? Sit there. I didn't even bother to read what newsweb publication was there. But over time, I just said, okay, how do you be a news reporter? And then when I got into music, how do you be a music journalist? How do you write for magazines? How do you write for newspapers? Okay, now I made a documentary for MTV after my season in the real world. How do you make a documentary? You know, you start learning these things. And I think that you're right. All of y'all are right. The system is ridiculous. The system is racist, sexist, classist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist. Everything y'all can think of, this system is. But the question becomes, okay, now that I know all of this stuff, and I continually know all of this stuff, and I continue to learn this history of all these different things, depending on my identity or identities, as you said, Ben, how do I navigate this? You know, how do I navigate this as a black male? Ben, how do I navigate this as a black queer male? You know, well, maybe I need to pay attention to what Bayard Rustin did or what James Baldwin did. You feel what I'm saying? You know, how do I navigate this in different ways? How do I navigate it as women? You know what I'm saying? You know, who was Ida B. Wells? You know, what did she do? What did Ella Baker do? You know, what did Angela Davis do? And I think that has what has helped me paying attention to folks who came before me. You know what I'm saying? And surrounding yourself with like-minded people. Like the worst thing y'all can do is graduate from school like PV and not make sure you have a tribe that you're connected to for the rest of your life, whether they're PV alum or other people that you meet along the way. Like, this is my tribe, so I know I'm not crazy, I'm not bugging out here. And then y'all know part of it is just networking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, Kevin Powell, you're out there in the world. You were just in Dallas. You're in Houston. You're going to L.A., Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore this week. You must know people in different places. You know what I'm saying? Do you have any ideas, suggestions of what I need to do, or who are some people that I can connect with? If people are willing to give you some contacts, always get a minimum of 3 contacts out of people. Here's some newspaper people. Here's some TV people. Here's some film people. You know what I'm saying? Here's some magazine folks. Here's some podcast website folks. That is important because that's how you build your database up of contacts. You know what I mean? And definitely join the National Association of Black Journalists if you're not already a member. Join any organization that has to do with media in some form, so you're connected to folks. And even join organizations that are tied to whatever identities that you have, so you have these different safe spaces. I belong to a lot of different kind of communities because of everything that y'all just said. I'm a part of the hip hop community. I'm part of the activist social justice community, but I'm also a journalist. I'm a part of the National Association of Black Journalists. I'm an alpha. You know what I mean? This is my church community. You know what I'm saying? It's just different spaces that I can plug into that help me navigate this stuff. And honestly, y'all, and I'm not saying that I'm the norm, but I haven't done a resume in years. I haven't updated a resume or CV in years. But I don't like the word grind, because I do think like it makes it seem like you just got to work yourself to death. I think that you just have to make sure you have a plan for yourself. So what I always say to younger people, what's your plan? Lindsay J, Ben T, what's your plan for the next 12 months? And what's your plan for the next 3 months? And what's your plan for your life for the next 5 months? And then the next 10 years. I'm sorry, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I'm talking about years. Like I wrote my first 3 books out of my 16 books in my 20s, because I was like, I'm determined to have 3 books by the time I turn 30. Now, did I know how it was going to happen? Nah, it's like I got to learn publishing now. You feel what I'm saying? And so the point I also realized is that, Kev, you got to be a student for the rest of your life. All the stuff is coming at you. You better believe when you were talking about it, I've had things not happen for me simply because I'm a Black person or a Black male. You know what I'm saying? I've had people just blatantly racist. I can tell y'all for a fact, if you actually Google white male writers who are in their 40s and 50s in this country, specifically so-called straight white males, who sit at the top of this so-called pyramid of the system you're talking about, Ben. No, none of them can say they got 16 books like Kevin Powell. I outworked all of them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I outworked all of them.
Well, when we come back from this commercial break, you definitely can tell us how you outwork them. How did you do that? You can also, we can talk about networking a little bit and just talk about plans for the future as soon as we come back from this commercial break on HBCU Today. Welcome back to HBCU Today with our special guest, Mr. Kevin Powell, the activist, the writer, the
reality star,
television personality,
all of the above,
documentary director.
Brooklyn, son. Brooklyn
in the house.
So before the break, we were talking a little bit about networking and basically how you outwork your
peers, my generation.
Yes.
I mean, I had no choice because I was on top of the world when I was writing cover stories for Vibe magazine. I'm writing cover stories on Tupac, Snoop Dogg, a bunch of whoever the biggest stars were. But what I noticed that my white peers, they were getting jobs at the New York Times and all these other places, and I was like, no one's offering me these jobs. You see what I'm saying? And, you know, even when Pac died, I was sent out to Vegas. I was in Vegas when Pac died. I wrote the cover story for Rolling Stone magazine. It's a famous photo of him with no shirt on, just looking into the camera. And I never wrote another cover story I've never written a cover story for Rolling Stone since then. Pac died in 1996. And so that told me early on as a young writer, as a younger person, stuff is not just going to be given to you because you don't have that skin privilege that other folks have.
Right.
And they look out for each other. And it's almost like, you know, one will be let in every now and then. But it's like, I mean, I'm proud of my resume. I've written for Esquire, Washington Post, The Guardian, New York Times, Vibe, Rolling Stone, Essence, Ebony, so many different kinds, HuffPost. You know what I mean? My byline's been all over the place, but I've had to earn all of it. I've had to force it, make it happen. You know, and you just don't stop. And you have to be willing to reinvent yourself sometimes, you know. And so, you know, the person I am now as a media person, when I started, I wanted to be a news reporter. Then I reinvented myself. I'm like a music journalist. And then I realized, okay, I'm going to have to be a public speaker because I need to make some living there. Then I got my books. I got 16 books. You feel what I'm saying? I've always wanted to write books. I didn't know it was going to be this many books, you know, but I'm also a poet. This is one of my poetry books, you know, and you know, my wife and I are making documentary films. So I make films. I've done podcasts. You got to be willing to do a range of things. And what has helped me is picking up as many skill sets as possible. You said it, Ben. You know, we know how to speak. Y'all are powerful speakers. That's one of the most important things you can get out of being in communications. Because when I was early in my college years, I was awkward. I wouldn't talk. Because I didn't think that my voice mattered. You know what I mean? Because the environment that I came from, shut up, be quiet. You know, if you're young, you ain't got nothing to say. You know, that kind of thing, unfortunately. And so I had to find my voice. And then I realized, oh, my voice could actually get me paid. You know what I'm saying? My voice can get me the Toni Morrison writer residency at Prairie View A&M University. I didn't know that. So but those skill sets, how did I develop my voice? Being in organizations, doing stuff like this, you know. Writing, I take very seriously. No matter, I say to folks all the time in communication, doesn't matter if you're going to be in print, TV, whatever it is, you gotta know how to write. It's an important skill. I've had young people work with me who are interns who said they want to do what I did. They couldn't even spell or do grammar. It's no judgment. If you can't do spelling or grammar, work on it. You got to improve that. Because a lot of times the reason why you can't do it, especially your generation, they've been emphasizing when y'all going through grade school and high school so much with the testing. They skipped over grammar and spelling a lot of times.
I did.
And because we got these things now where we just like LOL and OMG and stuff like that, you know, even with my text now, I spell check my text messages. I got to be in the habit of spelling stuff correctly because what you don't want to have happen. I had a young person working with me who has a master's degree. This is about a year or so ago. And I think I was looking at my wife for a second because she knows what I'm talking about. The person was brilliant, but then they could not spell or do grammar. I could not keep them on as an employee with my company because I was like, I can't even trust you to send an email for me. That's bad.
You know what's crazy? You know, they don't actually teach cursive writing in schools anymore.
No.
I really think my generation, us, were like the last people to learn cursive in
I learned
elementary
cursive.
school.
I barely learned cursive. They stopped teaching it. They stopped teaching cursive right before me.
That's deep. And so I think one of the questions, this is why intergenerational conversations are important like this. Like, what do I need to know? You know, and you know, I'll tell you, when I was a young person, I had to seek out hard older people who are like me right now, who are willing to share information. Because some heads would say, "Oh, you just got to hustle, man." I'm like, well, how do I hustle?
They gatekeep.
They gatekeep,
They
man.
gatekeep. Thank you, man. No, like, you know, I'm telling y'all, develop every skill set imaginable. You know what I mean? Say that again.
Versatility.
Yes. You know, think about like LeBron James is 6'8", but he can post up, he can shoot 3-pointers, he can go to the hole, be versatile.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Networking. I notice most schools I go to, only 1 or 2% of the students even ask me for my social media handles. My Instagram is at Kevin Powell in Brooklyn, you know, or Kev, can I get your email address? Most students don't even ask. I'm like, I've been here at Prairie View the whole time. Hardly any students ask, can I stay in touch? You know what I mean? Or I might, you know, if do you know anybody in this city, that kind of city, that's important. You know what I'm saying? So networking. I say to students all the time, like, yo, you can have your name on Twitter or Instagram, wherever you are. That's like your nickname, your fun name. But if you're serious about getting into this world, people actually, your name is your brand. Whatever name you decide to put out there as a media person, as a journalist, Kevin Powell, that's the name. Like, my nickname is Kipo, but most people don't know that stuff from my homies. You know what I'm saying? Because Kevin Powell is my brand. I'm like, I gotta make sure people know this name. You know what I mean? So that's important. And then I just think, you know, being willing to do anything. Like when I started, I was working with black newspapers in New York City, New Jersey. Man, I wrote articles. I wrote the headlines. I took the photographs. I went to the school fair. I went to the football game. I didn't care what the story was. I'm like, I just want to get articles out there. Don't think that you're above any kind of thing that can get you to the next level. Don't let anyone disrespect you. Don't let anyone put you down or make you feel like you're nothing.
Right.
You know, I've had students who said they were interns at other places where they just had them sweeping floors the whole summer. That's insane. Or getting coffee and tea for people. That's insane. Like you should not have an internship where you are not actually being taught something about what you want to go into in that world of communications. Does that make sense, y'all?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I know that me and Lindsay, we're about to graduate. They're graduating soon. So what we need to know now is what are some tips that we can do now that we're getting ready to graduate? How can we, because we're all aspiring to be in the media field, what can we do now because we're, at this point we have a month left. So it's like, I mean, of course we're already like putting these applications out, like we're trying. So what can we do to progress further?
What is your field and what's your field for y'all that are graduating right this month, next month?
So I'm an aspiring media personality. So I do a lot of interviewing and hosting. So I want to go into the
entertainment, sports, news, all of the above.
All of the above, honestly. My main focus are usually entertainment. It's usually entertainment. I do music as well. I don't produce music. I'm saying like I
interview artists.
Yes, I do artist interviews. So mine is music and television.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm mostly in production-based work. Same media, mass communications, film, TV, and all that.
So you behind the scenes, you want to be in front of the camera.
Yes.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. One, and where are you from again?
I'm from Joliet, Illinois.
I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. Be willing to go anywhere in the country. That's
Yeah.
number one. I wish that, like, I've only lived in New York and New Jersey my whole life, but I've been all around the country, like as a journalist, as a media person. Because I'm like, and as I said before we started this interview, I didn't get on a plane until I was 24, y'all. You know, which is crazy when you think about it. But you know, I was poor. Two, I didn't know, my imagination was so limited. I didn't know that you could actually get on a plane and go somewhere. You don't have to just be here in this one little area.
Right.
And so I say, don't limit yourself. And so, you know, and I would say, and always, the difference with your generation, and I would say the last two generations, your generation, the one right before y'all, when I was coming up in the 90s as a young journalist, we didn't know that you could actually be a CEO. You could actually be an entrepreneur. You could actually do something yourself. We saw people who are my generation, y'all know who they are. They're Diddy, Jermaine Dupri, people like that. It was like an oddity to see one say, yo, this is my company. I'm not saying that you shouldn't look for a job, look to get connected with a major outlet, but I also think you need to have a parallel thing going on. Nothing's stopping you from saying, you know what, I'm going to have my own interview show. I'm going to put it on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, wherever. Nothing's saying that I can't produce my own things because I got the skill sets while I'm waiting for that opportunity to happen. Or even as that's happening, let me make sure I always have my own thing happening over here. Does it make sense? Because what if you lose this? What if they lay off people?
Right.
Like one of my friends works at Warner Music Group. They just laid off 350 people. You know what I'm saying? And so because of COVID, what we're just coming out of, a lot of multimedia companies are actually laying off people. So you might want to think about, how do I create my own opportunities as well? Do both. And you know, even if you got to do it locally, Illinois, Dallas, wherever you are from, take a job, get a job somewhere so you can get your foot in the door, use their equipment as much as you can, learn everything you can, but always keep applying for stuff nonstop. LinkedIn, I used to think was mad corny out of all the platforms. I actually think LinkedIn is the most valuable platform of all the social media platforms because that's where all the professionals are. You see the resumes, you see the CVs. That's where you need to have your real name.
I don't have one. I need one.
need
So
one.
actually,
LinkedIn,
it's funny you say that because me and TDV had a short conversation right before spring break, and she's actually going to have a LinkedIn session because I don't have a LinkedIn either.
Okay.
And I know that going into the industry, that's definitely something that we need, and we need to have a good LinkedIn.
Yes.
So TDV, when you see this, we ready for that LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is
I'll be
important
there.
because what's there is where people, I mean, you know, Instagram, Twitter, every TikTok, we can just bug out.
Right.
LinkedIn, folks, is serious.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean business.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, I know as a media communications person, I see job postings all the time for all over the world. I would say don't even limit yourself to the States. Like there's Canada, there's Mexico, there's Europe, there's plenty of places. Just look, what can get me into the next level? Because once you're in the loop of stuff, you start hearing about stuff. And that's why I said I haven't had to do a resume in years. I mean, plus I also have my own company, my own multimedia company. I've had my own company for a long time because what I learned from being at Vibe Magazine, where I had benefits and salary, is when it was over, I was like, oh, snap. I don't have a job and I don't have anything to fall back on. You know what I mean? And I made a conscious decision at a certain point, I just want to work for myself. Now, that's not for everyone, but I think you should at least have those skill sets as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
You know, so I think apply for everything.
Definitely.
Don't limit yourself. Make sure your writing skills are on par. If you got to improve it, work on that. You know, it's never too late. Don't think, okay, I got a degree now. Is it too late? No, you should constantly be trying to grow your skill sets. Yeah.
And I feel like another skill set we all have that we were all born with, like what I talked about earlier about us surviving, being able to prosper through any adversity. Like when you were saying how other people got jobs from the New York Post and you weren't getting that. I like to bring up Professor Clomax. I remember one time in class he was talking to us. He said, basically, the gist of his whole speech was, "Don't let anyone's complacency stop you from progressing."
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. That's it. That's it. Don't let any. Say it again.
Don't let anyone's complacency stop you from succeeding.
Yeah. And to that point, what I had to learn was like, let me not be around people who are not scribers.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because it's like you can be around the misery club. Like, man, can you believe we ain't got no jobs? Man, no, we ain't got no jobs. Oh, that's my hand sanitizer. Don't mind me. We ain't got jobs. You are stuck. I don't want to be stuck. And so, and let me be honest with y'all. In my 30 plus years of being a writer, all the things that I've done, I've definitely had moments where I didn't have any money, where it was bleak, where I wanted to give up, I wanted to quit, I was depressed, all that kind of stuff. You know, but what kept me going was like, man, listen, man, your mom's got an 8th grade education. Your grandmother could not read and write. And there's people who came before you who figured out a way to do this thing, even when it was hard times.
Yeah.
So you can't give up. You just can't give up because you owe it to yourself,
Mhm.
you know, but you also owe it to all the folks who came before you, you know. And I think, you know, we just have too many resources at our disposal. You just have to be creative. And that imagination, what's the skill set we need to keep for the rest of our lives? You got to have an imagination. Know that anything is possible. Anything is possible. Who's telling you, you know, can't? My wife and I always say, you can't should not be a part of your vocabulary. I would even say drop the word aspiring. Nope, I'm not an aspiring media professional. I am a media professional. I am a writer. I am a journalist. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Claim it. Because words have power.
Exactly.
And we can limit ourselves just by the words we use to describe who we are, what we do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I look at the example, remember when LSU won, if y'all sports fans like I am, Angel Reese, LSU, women beat Iowa.
Yes.
Angel Reese is gangster.
Oh, man.
She's like Muhammad Ali because it's like, you ain't going to tell me I am not the greatest when I know I am the greatest.
Yes.
And we didn't understand, up until Muhammad Ali, black folks didn't talk like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the reason why Muhammad Ali did that, he wasn't just speaking for himself, he was speaking for all of us because we're beat down. You said it, then the system, the racism, the sexism, the classism, the homophobia, the transphobia, the Islam, the ableism, it beats you down. You gotta say, you know what? Every day, I'm the greatest. I got this. No matter what, I'm gonna figure it out.
And I'm a firm believer in that because I'm very like, you know, Mary J. Blige has that song, Good Morning Gorgeous. Like, ever since that song came out, I don't say Good Morning Gorgeous, but I do look in the mirror like, you're killing it today. Like, good job. You went to class. Good. Like,
that's right.
You have to, like, be good on yourself and just let out positive energy because if you don't believe in yourself or if you're, like, doubting, it can't happen. You have to stand 10. You got to stand 10.
And that's the thing that I did not get that y'all have the benefit of. When I was a young person, we didn't have words around like trauma and, you know, affirmation and self-care and self-love. Man, what we had was a lot of weed and a lot of liquor and you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, you know, and I don't judge no one. Like, if that's what you into, that's what you into. But I realized that I wasn't being taught to take care of my mental amidst all the stuff that we're talking about here that's being thrown at us, you know, because it's hard. It's hard. It's hard being a black person in this world, no matter what your multiple identities are. But man, ain't nobody gonna stop you if you believe in yourself.
Exactly.
And it's like emphasizing.
Well, I was going to change it a little bit because before we leave, I did want to talk about your poetry book,
Thank you.
Grocery Shopping with My Mother, because I read through it while you guys were talking. I did read through it, and I was noticing, like, the first poems are, like, dedicated to your mom.
Yes.
So I'm just like, what? And you were talking about versatility, and you have 16 books. So what inspired you to, like, dedicate this specific, like, book to your mom and poems, like, regarding that?
Great question. She got sick a few years ago, and ironically, Trump, that monster, got elected in November 2016. My mother got sick that same month, later that month. Just a coincidence, but you know, we all think have been sick because of what's been going on in this country. But I literally had to start taking her grocery shopping because she couldn't go by herself anymore. She couldn't walk to the store. It's just down the street. And I would walk behind there. Sometimes I'd be crying, because I'm an only child. This is my mother. This is the one person that I've known my whole life. Man. And also, it forced me to really think about my own life. My relationship with my mother, and I'm sure some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Sometimes our relationship with our parents can be very complicated. They don't understand us, and we don't get them. You know what I mean? And so that's in there. The first poem and the last poem of the book are long pieces that are dedicated to my mother. But I feel that art, because I consider myself an artist, not just a journalist, but an artist, is about trying to make sense of the madness of the world. It's about healing, trying to, figure some things out. And so for me, poetry is like, how do I figure out what's happening here? So this poem's in there about my mother. This poem's in there about Sidney Poitier, Cicely Tyson. When Kobe Bryant died, there's a poem in there about him.
Janet Jackson's
I love Janet
I
Jackson.
like that one.
Yeah, Janet Jackson's in there. Because I always felt that Janet Jackson was dissed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Justin Timberlake got to keep his career. Right. Janet, as a black woman, back to that.
Justice for Janet.
Justice for Janet. Thank you. You know what I mean? There's a long poem in there about Tupac and Biggie, which is really a poem about what it is to be black males in this world and what's thrown at us, So there's so many things in there. The poetry book reflects my politics, you know what I mean? And the reason why I write poetry, because there's certain ways that I can write freely in poems the way I can't write a article or a blog. I like, this is my freedom.
You got a source inside and have that information.
I can just spit it here. I can just say, this is what I feel, you know what I mean? And so, free poetry is freedom to me. So I encourage folks. People always ask me, what can I do for self-care? I don't care if it's cooking, sewing, fashion. We were talking about fashion earlier before we started, Ben, petty manis, whatever you got to do something that's going to make you feel good in the midst of all this craziness that we go through.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of craziness, but I feel like, I don't want to speak for, I'm going to let y'all say how y'all feel, but I feel like this conversation kind of put me at ease a little bit.
That's the perfect word, put me at ease, and it just lets all of us know, like, clearly there's greater out there. Like, you just got to put in the work. It's never going to be handed to you.
And we've came this far, like, we in college, like, we about to graduate college, so obviously we made it this far. It's just
we're doing something right.
Prairie View, I love this school so much. I know we got to wrap this up, but think about our ancestors who came here less than 10 years after slavery ended to Prairie View and started the school, and look at who y'all are.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Draw on that, and y'all got this for the rest of your lives.
Yes.
Y'all feel me?
Beats the plantation.
Word.
And productive Panthers have been produced.
Prairie View produces productive people. And we are so glad that you, Mr. Kevin Powell, have decided to come talk to us today. And again, we're the last stop, right? So you already know. You saved the best for last.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
But I guess we're going to end this. Thank y'all for tuning in to HBCU today. I'm Ben Priest.
I'm Taryn.
I'm Lindsay Walker.
I'm Jay Lockhart.
And it's Kevin Powell. But bye, guys. Make sure you guys tune in to the next one.
All right, put all our sunglasses on. Just kidding.